Today, this logo represents wealth, status, exclusivity. A single Louis Vuitton bag can cost thousands of pounds. Its products are worn by celebrities, athletes, billionaires, and royalty. But the story behind this luxury empire didn't begin in a palace. It began with a teenage boy, leaving his tiny village in France and traveling hundreds of kilometers towards Paris. He had no company, no investors, no famous family name, and no idea that one day his own name would become one of the most recognizable luxury brands on earth. But Louis Vuitton understood something that most people around him didn't. The world was changing. People were traveling more, and the rich had a problem. Their luggage was terrible. Louis Vuitton didn't invent luxury. He saw where the world was going and built the perfect product for it. This is the story of how a teenage boy with almost nothing built a name that would become a global luxury empire. Louis Vuitton was born in 1821 in Angers, a small village in the Jura region of France. This wasn't the world of fashion shows, luxury boutiques, and celebrity ambassadors that we associate with his name today. His family came from a background of farmers and craftsmen. As a child, Louis grew up surrounded by wood and manual craftsmanship. But at around 14 years old, he made a decision that would change his life. He left home. His destination was Paris. But there was a problem. Paris was hundreds of kilometers away. According to Louis Vuitton's own historical account, the journey took around 2 years. Along the way, the young Louis worked different jobs before eventually reaching Paris on foot as a teenager. Imagine arriving in one of Europe's biggest cities at 16. No social media, no phone, no LinkedIn, no family connections, just the ability to work. But Louis had arrived in Paris at exactly the right time. France was changing. Industrialization was transforming cities. Railways were expanding. Steamships were carrying wealthy travelers further around the world. Travel was becoming a business, and with travel came a problem. People needed something to carry their possessions in. In 1837, Louis became an apprentice to a successful box maker and packer named Monsieur Maréchal. At the time, professional packers were hired to protect and transport the valuable possessions of wealthy travelers. Louis spent years learning the trade. He learned how trunks were constructed, how expensive clothing had to be packed, how wealthy customers behaved, and, most importantly, he learned what was wrong with the products already on the market. For years, Louis worked quietly, but his skill began attracting wealthy clients. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. Louis Vuitton became associated with the household of Empress Eugénie, wife of Napoleon III, as a box maker and packer. This gave him access to the highest levels of French society and helped build his reputation among wealthy customers. Think about what that meant. Louis didn't have Instagram influencers. He didn't have paid advertisements. He had something potentially even more powerful in 19th century Paris, the right customer. When the most powerful and fashionable people in society trusted you with their possessions, other wealthy people noticed. Louis had learned the craft. He had learned the customer. And now he had built a reputation. After years of apprenticeship, in 1854, Louis Vuitton opened his own business in Paris. The company dates its foundation to that year. But opening another trunk shop wasn't enough. If Louis wanted to win, he needed to solve a problem his competitors hadn't solved, and that problem was sitting right in front of him. At the time, many traditional travel trunks had rounded tops. There was a practical reason for this shape. The curved design helped water run off, but it created another problem. You couldn't easily stack them. And as trains and ships transformed travel, efficient storage was becoming increasingly important. Louis Vuitton saw the opportunity. He developed a flat-topped trunk covered with canvas. The flat design could be stacked more efficiently, while the canvas helped create a practical travel product that was lighter than traditional leather luggage. The house traces this trunk innovation to the 1850s. It sounds simple today, a box that can be stacked. But some of the biggest businesses in history were built by solving obvious problems that everyone else had accepted as normal. Louis Vuitton didn't create demand for travel. The railways and steamships were already doing that. He created a better product for the world that was emerging, and the business grew. In 1859, Louis established a workshop in Asnières, outside Paris, a site that remains connected to the house's craftsmanship today. But success created a new problem. Competitors started copying him, and that would eventually help create one of the most recognizable brand identities in the world. Today, counterfeiting is one of the biggest problems facing luxury brands. But Louis Vuitton's battle with imitation began more than a century ago. As the trunks became successful, competitors copied the designs. So the company kept changing its visual identity. Different patterns were introduced over time to make the products more distinctive. Then, after Louis Vuitton's death in 1892, his son Georges continued expanding the company. In 1896, the famous monogram canvas was introduced, combining the LV initials with floral symbols. That pattern would eventually become one of the most recognizable designs in fashion. And this is where the story becomes bigger than luggage. Because Louis Vuitton wasn't only selling a functional object anymore, the company was building recognition. A normal bag carries your belongings. A luxury bag also communicates something about the person carrying it. Taste, wealth, status, exclusivity. The LV monogram turned the product itself into advertising. Every person carrying the product became a walking billboard for the brand. And the more recognizable the logo became, the more valuable the status became. Louis Vuitton died in 1892. He never saw the modern company that carries his name. He never saw global fashion shows, celebrity partnerships, massive flagship stores, or the brand becoming part of one of the world's most powerful luxury groups. The company continued under later generations of the Vuitton family and expanded internationally. Over time, the name moved beyond trunks and luggage into handbags, fashion, shoes, accessories, jewelry, and more. But the foundation remained surprisingly similar: craftsmanship, travel, scarcity, recognition, and storytelling. The company doesn't simply sell products, it sells the history surrounding those products. A trunk isn't just a box, it's connected to the age of luxury travel. The monogram isn't just a pattern, it's connected to more than a century of brand history. And the name Louis Vuitton isn't just the name of a company, it is the name of the teenager who walked towards Paris and learned how wealthy people traveled. That history became part of the product, and in luxury, the story can be almost as valuable as the object itself. The most interesting part of the Louis Vuitton story isn't that a poor teenager became successful, it's how he did it. He entered an industry and spent years learning it before opening his own company. He found customers with money. He understood their problems. Then he watched a major trend, mass travel, and created a product designed for that new world. But perhaps the biggest lesson came afterwards. Competitors can copy a product. They can copy the shape, the materials, even the general idea. But building a brand that people desire for generations is much harder to copy. Louis Vuitton began by solving a practical problem. But the company that followed learned how to sell something much more powerful: desire. People don't wait outside luxury stores because they desperately need another bag. They do it because the product means something to them. And that may be Louis Vuitton's greatest transformation. A business that began by protecting people's possessions during travel eventually became a possession people travel around the world to buy. Louis Vuitton's journey began with a teenager traveling towards Paris. No billion-dollar valuation, no global stores, no famous logo. Just a young craftsman learning a trade and paying attention to a world that was changing around him. Nearly 2 centuries later, his name lives on. Not above a small trunk workshop, but across one of the most famous luxury brands in the world. And perhaps the biggest lesson from his story is this: empires don't always begin with billion-dollar ideas. Sometimes they begin with one person noticing a problem that everyone else has learned to live with. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe. We uncover the business, money, and billion-dollar decisions behind the world's biggest brands and stories, with new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.